Hi guys, welcome to this tutorial on paper 1 question 3 of the June 2019, should have said, AQA language paper. Okay, the structure question. So as always, in terms of preparing for this question, it's only worth the same amount of marks, remember, as your language question, but often I see students writing pages and pages. It's hard because you're looking at a whole text. But the thing that I would sort of encourage you to do when you're approaching this question is to do some structure tracking before you write your answer. And you can see that with this, I'm working under the assumption that you've have read this extract. I'm not going to read it to you, but you know, going through and literally what structurally is happening. So you can see that I've thought about the setting, the pathetic fallacy, the introduction of character, the introduction of the journey, the incorporation then of dialogue, the movement out of the van and her kind of Alice's blind obedience as she does that. Thought about, you know, mentioning within the dialogue these one-word answers, Alice getting left behind in the awful weather whilst her parents drive off. Excuse me. The third person omniscient narrator, where we kind of get a sense of what she's doing, what she's going through. Then, you know, she goes back, she sees her parents again, we've got the angry dialogue, and then she's sent back out again to sell these flowers. So I think just tracking through it, you won't necessarily be talking about all of these things, but it gives you a good sense of how the whole text has been built. Now, I always, with this question when I'm teaching it, you know, they talk about this question will always be the same, how has it been structured to interest you? And I always view it as the beginning, the change the focus, yes, anything else that interests you, but I try and talk about the beginning, the middle, and I try and encourage students to talk about how it's ended, how does the writer draw those the ideas together. So I view this as slightly different to the language question in that it's not necessarily zooming in the same level. Certainly you're not talking about the individual words and their meanings, you're looking at the position of things, the way it's been built, always think about how it's been put together. So I'm going to go through and highlight anything that is structural in this response that I've written. So I think, you know, this is a useful starting point, whatever you're doing. At the start of the extract, the writer focuses our attention on the externals of the Hartop's van. It's clearly dilapidated, and the inclusion of a wintry, hostile setting, rain and November, makes us wonder whether the van will even be able to complete its journey. So there's a comment on effect here that the writer is focusing on an external of the van, that it's actually focusing on setting. Now, note here that I've used examples, but I haven't gone in, rain makes us think of, November we associated. They're just there to support my comment about the structure. Okay, so that's my first thing that I want to mention. Then is a structural term because it shows that you're looking chronologically what's happening next. Then the writer moves the focus to the inside of the van and introduces the bleak and sickly looking Hartops. So introduction, the movement inside. The third person narrative is used to describe the family, and the lack of dialogue at this point focuses our attention on the physical, as well as introducing potential conflict. Conflict through their awkward body language. Body language, again, the writer has designed this, he has ensured that the interaction between them feels awkward and uncomfortable for particular reasons, you know, this introduction of conflict. The writer develops the description of the family, leaving readers anxious for Mrs. Hartop and Alice, who sit in silent apprehension. So again, I've used a quote to help my point, but I haven't gone in to zoom in on silent and apprehension. So after the detailed description, the writer stops the journey and incorporates dialogue. During the interaction, Alice is forced to get out of the van, moving the focus to the roadside. As readers, sorry, I got myself lost there. So as readers, we're sympathetic to Alice's blind obedience, as we told that she moved almost before he had spoken, implying real fear and hinting at previous similar experiences. So we've got this sense at this point of some quality of comment on effect. So the idea of this moving of focus to the roadside has actually made us feel sorry for Alice, because it's something that she's probably had to do a number of times. Okay, so the writer zooms in and out, focusing on the intense and unpleasant weather and then the lights of the houses. The juxtaposition of the bitter weather conditions and then the bright, safe and sheltered little squares of yellow reinforce the discomfort Alice is in through. And so we're looking at the end now of the extract. There is little comfort for Alice. The writer includes more dialogue, focusing our attention on the angry Mr. Hartop. Hartop raised his voice. The impact sentence, Alice obeyed at once, is used at the end before she vanished. Ending the extract on Alice's disappearance into the dark night provokes real pity and leaves us questioning her father's behaviour in terms of his daughter's welfare. Okay, so you can see it's, I've used, I've filled basically that first page in the question and one other. So it's slightly longer than a language question. But I think that the key things, hopefully, as you're looking at that is, sort of kind of let me zoom out a little bit. Hopefully the key things that you can see is just how many elements of structure we identify in a response like this. We're constantly thinking about what does the writer do then? What do they incorporate next? How do they develop something? We've got examples in there, but we certainly are not zooming in on any language. We're not talking about language techniques. We're not mentioning adjectives or metaphors or verbs. We are thinking always about structural elements: narrative, dialogue, description, setting. And then all of these words like then and inside and next and after, the zooming in and out, the focusing, the juxtaposition. So this is the kind of language you really need to adopt for this question. The skills of this, as I've said, are the techniques, and they're also having a sense of how are we then affected. A bit like the language question, really. We're thinking about the effects of that. And so in this paragraph, with the moving to the roadside, that's why I'm sympathetic to her. The juxtaposing of this, what does it do? Well, it makes me feel pity. And so what I've done there is I've tracked the structure. I've gone from beginning to the end. I've got loads of structural devices in there. And I've really tried to consider the impact of that structure upon the readers. Okay, hope that was useful for you. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.